For our next project, I want you to think about this question. How would you describe the poses of superheroes in movies and comics? If I were to answer this question, I would describe them that they are full of action, they are full of movement, and they're also quite dynamic. We are going to be taking these ideas from comics and from superhero movies that we have seen, and we're going to be using this to create our next work of art that's going to focus on human anatomy. Gesture drawing is the basic knowledge that we are going to be portraying in our next artwork. It involves capturing the action, form, and pose of a subject matter in a short amount of time. So as you can see here, you'll see that all of these gesture drawings to the right are in different poses. There's also quite a bit of movement and action involved with them. They are not just standing in one simple position. They are also quick and they are to the point. Some facts about gesture drawing that's important to understand is gesture drawing does not take up that much time. The setup time for gesture drawing is very minimal. All you need is a pencil, a pen, and a sketchbook, and the poses can be as short as 1 minute. You do not have to worry about making mistakes. You should not be doing any erasing in gesture drawing. If you make a mistake, just learn from it, move on to the next drawing, and also try to fix it by just drawing over it. Also, you will gain a better understanding of form and the human anatomy. This is one of the main reasons people practice gesture drawing in the first place. It really gives you a feel for the form and anatomy of the human body. You will learn how the body moves and how it is connected. And the last thing about gesture drawing that's important is it is great for warming up your hands. Artists often find their first drawings in a session that are they're rigid and tight. As they complete gesture drawings, their drawing style becomes a lot more loose and more fluid, which actually creates better gesture drawings. You're probably asking me the question, but why are we doing this? The purpose of gesture drawing is to study human form and the anatomy. It allows you to explore the way the body moves and how it is connected. Specifically, gesture drawing studies the human form in motion. So, as you've seen in many superhero movies and comics, all of the figures that you see within these images or within these different types of films and books are always in motion. There's something always moving around them, and their bodies are always moving as well. So it's important for us to understand how the body moves and how proportions are also aligned with the way it moves. What we're going to do right now is we're actually going to listen from a local celebrity from Matawan, whose name is Mr. Brock Hoare. He is actually a digital arts art teacher here at Matawan Regional High School. As you can see in some of Mr. Hoare's artwork, you'll see that he was obviously very focused on creating different images of form and proportion when creating some of these superhero comics. It's kind of hard to tell in some of these images, but as you can see, there are a lot of different gesture drawings involved here. Take a look at this one. You can see, especially within the foreground, this woman just like looked like she almost just like beat up this guy in the front. And you can see that her arm is like moving. You can also see the body of this man kind of at the top right hand corner. He's in this very dynamic position where he's moving. So, as you could probably tell, Mr. Hoare used to actually be a superhero penciler or artist. We're going to hear a little bit about him, and I think it's really interesting to kind of find out why he thinks gesture drawing is important. Hey there.
Hello.
Can you introduce yourself for
Sure.
the camera, please?
Sure. I am Mr. Hoare. I am a digital art, graphic design, digital photography, web design teacher here at Matawan Regional High School.
Awesome. Can you tell the class something that you used to do prior to being a teacher?
Well, as it relates to this subject matter, before I was a teacher, I was a professional artist for over a decade, including being a penciler for the comic book industry. Um, some clients that I actually did work for were Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and a whole slew of independent publishers.
Awesome. During your time as a penciler, what were some of your, I guess, projects that you worked on?
For DC, I did a Adventures of Superman annual, which was a 54-page issue my senior year in college. I was supposed to do the second half of it, but I had to turn that down because I had to graduate. For Marvel, I did something for Iron Man. I also work for the California affiliate Malibu Comics, so it's bought over by them. And then, again, like I said, a ton of independent work for smaller publishers.
Awesome. What was the content that you were drawing for these publishers?
Well, again, the biggest thing when it comes to the industry, it's pretty much putting people into stories. And a lot of it has to do with exactly getting the proportions right, putting a person in an environment that they feel they're to scale. So all that stuff is crucial when it comes to, again, learning how to draw the human figure in action, in motion. And as one of my editors said, that one of the hardest things to do is to draw a person doing boring things interesting.
Interesting. Um, so would it be safe to say that gesture drawing was a huge influence or a huge importance when you were in college?
It was crucial. I spent, I don't know how many hours in the studio just doing sketches, not anything finished, gesture drawings, very quick, literally 1 minute sketches. The model would be up there. I had 1 minute to get the the core of the gesture down, and then on to the next one, on to the next one. It taught me to observe quickly and to get the core action needed. So if it's the back arching or the arms outstretched, I didn't want to focus on like I didn't have time to focus on say the facial structure or the muscle tone. It was similar, pretty much just a quick this, that, and before I knew it, okay, next pose, and you were just trained to constantly look and pick out what was crucial and important.
Awesome. Um, how would you? Why do you think gesture drawing is something that's important to kind of really kind of master, whether it's in the art realm or a realm outside of art?
Oh, with art, it's very, especially in the commercial art field, it is very important because it's about time. You don't have time to sit there and try to really, really master all these little intricacies and make sure everything is perfect. You have to get the gesture down and the figure down as quickly as you possibly can because there's deadlines. So, just in the comic book industry, um, I'm the penciler, so I'm pretty much the person after the writer. The writer gets the story, gets a script, sends it to me. I look at every single page. I have to break everything down, and I have to get all the drawing done of where the figures are, where the scenes are, and stuff like that in pencil. I then ship that off to another person, the inker or the letterer, who puts in the sound effects, the word balloons, and then the black and white artwork. They have to send that off to the colorist because this is a production. This if one person is late, everyone is late. If that's late, it costs the publisher money. And the one thing, the reason why I made sure I could get this down is if I had a job, if I'm late, I'm not going to get hired again by this editor. He's not going to take a chance, or she's not going to take a chance with me because I cost their company money. I put their jobs on the line, so they want to put someone's faith in someone who can actually fulfill the deadline. So that was crucial when it comes to gesture drawing. The less time I had to worry about getting the gesture down, the more time I could focus on getting all the fun details. Everyone wants to focus on the eye candy, which I call all the details and everything looks perfect and beautiful, but it's the structure behind it that's more crucial. Because everything else, if it's like a house, if your house could look great on the outside, but inside looks like garbage, it's garbage. It's that simple. Um, Outside of this, I'm a coach as well. Gesture drawings shows me body language, how people move, how people go. I can tell by on the opposing team who can move, who can do whatever, who's flat-footed, who I can take advantage of in athletic competition. I can tell my players, listen, look out for this person. This person does this. I also can read their body language to see, okay, the person's down, the person doesn't believe what they can do. That says a lot right away. So I can tell my players, okay, this is what you have to exploit. Or if I see on my side a player that shoulders are scrunched, not moving, whatever, I could tell maybe I need a substitution because the person's body language is incorrect. So there's all different things you could use gesture drawings for. Just reading and observing how the body is moving could be crucial to like several things: medical, science, as I just said, athletic. If you're a police officer, how people are acting, just observation. All of it, gesture drawing is about the power of observation.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Hoare. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
So, as you can see from my interview with Mr. Hoare, gesture drawing is definitely important, and it definitely can be kind of taken over in different realms of our lives rather than just art. So, the main thing I want you to take away from gesture drawing is that it's quick and it's all about getting the structure and the form and the proportions right of the human body. So, speaking of proportion, the element of art and the principle of design that we're going to be focusing on are is proportion and form. So if you take a look here, proportion describes how the sizes of different parts of a piece of art or a design relate to each other. So for our purposes, we will be using proportion when ensuring that all the parts of the body are sized properly in relation to one another. As you can see to the picture on the right hand side, it shows you a lot about the proportions of the average human. Now, are all people the same exact proportion? Absolutely not. But when we're drawing figures specifically in drawing style, we want to make sure that the proportions are as average as we can make them, because then we can fill in the structure or the form of the person, whether they are more muscular or more skinny or a little bit wider or a little bit thinner, right? We can start filling in those that form after the fact of getting all the proportions down. So we're going to be going over this a lot in the next video. I'm going to be showing you exactly what I mean by head heights and things like that. So let's take a look at Miss Parlow's video on how she draws proportionate figures. I will be voicing over this just to kind of give you an explanation of what I was thinking while I was creating this work of art. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you definitely want to start out with an oval head. Our head is an oval. I always start at the top of the paper, especially when I'm just trying to get the proportions right. I also just make this little T just to show that the face is going to be straight on. If it weren't straight on, then it would be towards the side. I want you to take a look at what I'm writing here. This is called a visual cue. We are using the head as the height of the head as the visual cue of how tall the rest of our body is going to be. So for from our neck down to our torso, you are doing two head lengths, okay? And I usually just use a lot of different lines. In order to do my shoulders, you have to do one head width on each side. So I mark those with my pencil and I almost make almost like a T. So at first, my form is going to look somewhat like a stick figure, and that's okay. After I do that, I'm going to start to add the neck. The neck is usually about the same width of the head. If obviously, if you have someone who's a little bit bulkier, you would make the neck a little bit larger. Okay. And then anytime I'm doing using joints or creating joints like shoulders, elbows, or knees, I'm using circles. For the rest of the torso, I am just going down in almost like a U shape to create the rest of this torso where kind of like my waist ends. I'm just making a U shape as I said. I'll also add almost like the traps of the human. So I'll kind of just make a little bit of a curve just to connect the shoulders a little bit more to the neck. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a straight line down to my where my waist hits, and that's going to be where my elbows are. Okay, because if you actually were to take your hands and put them directly kind of next to you, it will hit right near your waist. What I'm doing now is I'm just measuring again the head, and I'm making sure that it's about um, two head lengths down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to do something called sausages. So I'm just creating kind of like a little bit of a sausage around these lines just to fill them out so they don't look like stick figures. And I'll just do that by the kind of the arms. And also I'm going to now work on the waist here. So from my waist down to my pelvic bone, it's about a um, head length. Okay. I'm actually going to do the arm length first. It's about from your elbow down to your wrist is about one head length. Okay. And then from your hands down to, or your wrist down to your hand, is going to be almost like another head length. I'm coming in and I'm doing the pelvic area, like I said, making sure that it is one head length there. I'm adding a little bit more dimension just so that he doesn't look so skinny, or this human doesn't look so skinny. I'm then going to do these sausages again. And then also, I'm also going to add the lines in for the thigh. Okay, and that's going to be two head lengths again. I'm going to push up my paper a little bit. I'm then going to also kind of start in on the kneecaps. So just making like a curved or a circle would be the best way to do that. Then what I'm going to do from about the kneecap down to the ankle is about um, 1.5 head height. So I'm just putting those lines in, making sure that they're very, very proportionally correct. Now I'm going to add the sausages around the forearm area. Okay. And then I'm going to add my hands in after the fact. Remember, the hands, as I said, are about one head length of your face. If you actually take your hand and you put it above your face or against your face, you'll see that your hand is almost as tall as your head. It's like a little bit smaller. Then I'm just going to add these sausage legs, just like we talked about before with the arms, just add a little bit more form to my drawing. Remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. We are just getting the basic structure of and the basic kind of look and proportion of these figures. I'm going to make my calf muscle. Okay. I'm then going to make my foot after that. And I'm just going to add everything together to kind of make it a little bit less rigid. All right. Here comes my hands. I'm almost going to do like a mitt shape, like I'm wearing like a mitten. Could probably make them a little bit larger later. But as I said, we're just quickly getting the shape down. Also, please be mindful of how many lines I'm using. I'm going over everything multiple times, making sure that everything kind of looks a little bit more proportionate. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the feet. Usually, the shape I use to make the feet is I make a square just for that ankle area, and then I make a little bit of a longer rhombus just for the feet. And there you have a pretty proportionate human figure. Something that we need to talk about, especially when we're drawing human figures in motion, is called the line of action. The line of action is essentially the spine, the way the spine is shaped, right? So, obviously, if you take a look at our proportionate figure that we did back here on that video, you'll notice that the line from our neck down to our spine was very straight because the person was standing straight in front of us. That's not always the case. So what you want to think about when you're creating these next few works of art is you're actually going to want to create a line of action where you are looking at where the neck and the spine are curved to. Okay. Depending on that curvature, that's going to lead the rest of your body or the proportionate body that you're going to be drawing. Let's talk about next how we're going to be doing our gesture drawing exercises. You are expected to create 5 different gesture drawings. They should not take you more than 2 minutes each. We just did our first one together, and now you are going to create 4 more. What you are going to do is you're going to start with the head first. Everything flows from the head, and it helps to develop a consistent starting point. Try to make a quick note of where the head is looking up, down, left, right. Always be thinking about the contour of the body. Is the body leaning towards or away from you? Where are the changes in directions? Then use simple contour lines to give an indication of this. Not every line needs to follow the contour, but it is useful to have a few major contour lines as your reference points. Use simple and meaningful lines. Try to draw every single line with some kind of purpose. Working quickly does not mean working recklessly. Working quickly is more about making quick decisions rather than making quick strokes of your pen. Keep this all in mind when we are doing our gesture drawings. As you can see here, I have my 5 gesture drawings. One is the one that we just created with the man standing straight, okay? The other 4 are all in different positions. The 4 other poses or the different positions that you're going to be referencing, or you're actually going to be referencing the photos that I have posted on Google Classroom. So I have all of these different reference photos of either people who are doing a sport or those of some superheroes, okay? And they're on all of these different positions. In class, we're going to practice all of these. We're actually going to be creating I should say about 6 to 8 different gesture drawing poses that are going to take us less than 2 minutes each. You're going to pick your 4 best ones besides the one that we have done together of just the person who is straight looking out at us. These are going to be a little bit more difficult. You have to remember what the line of action is, and you have to remember all the proportions that we talked about. Okay. Some of your proportions may be a little bit skewed because sometimes you have to create things that look shorter, especially if there's something called foreshortening. I don't want you to get too hung up on that though, because that is for another lesson. But I just want you to focus on trying to get the form of the figure as accurate as you can. So let's take a look at this next video on how Miss Parlow actually takes one of those poses that I just showed you, and I attempt to recreate the pose within gesture drawing format. So here I have a photo of my reference photo, which is of a woman who is a dancer. As you can see, I'm looking at her spine first, but I always like to start with the head. So because her head is kind of giving me a profile side view of in the picture, I'm going to actually create her head more looking like almost like an egg a little bit. Instead of a perfect oval. And as I said, I like to make that T line just to show like where her eyes are and where her nose would be. Now I'm going to start by thinking about what is the line of action. So obviously her spine is kind of curved a little bit due to the fact of where and how her body is positioned. Remember, I'm using two head lengths just to kind of define that area of how long her spine is. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the area of where her chest is and also where her shoulders lie, and I'm going to make those lines or those circles for her shoulders as well. I'm then going to come in and kind of check to where her neck is and just fill that in. Remember, the neck is usually kind of as wide as the head. Now I'm going to create just a line, and I'm going to use the same proportions that I did in the first video of two proportions from the shoulder all the way down to the elbow, two head lengths. And I'm just going to make another line for one head length, which is going to be from the elbow to the wrist. And I'll eventually make the hands too. I'm going to go a little bit down just to kind of figure out where her chest is. And then I'm going to also start creating her back just to fill in some of these areas. As you can see, I'm making like really rough sketches. I'm also looking at her hips and like seeing that it's a pretty large circle. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm measuring, the width of everything properly and also the length of everything. As I said before, the thigh from the hip bone to the thigh is about two head lengths. So I'm doing that right now. And I'm also doing a circle for her knee. And I know that from the knee down to the ankle is about 1.5 head lengths. And then from the ankle to the foot is going to be another head length, or maybe a half a head length. I'm also going to start to draw the other leg that's kind of coming from the back. Remember, as I said, I'm just using a lot of lines, shapes, circles, sausages, as we talked about before, just to create the overall shape and the form of this woman, and making sure that the proportions are properly accurate as well. So I'm going to take a few more minutes to do this. Enjoy the rest of this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of your work.
Look at the stars, look how they shine for you. Everything you do, yeah, they were all yellow. I came along, I wrote a song for you. And all the things you do, and it was called yellow. So then I took my turn. Oh, what a thing to done. And it was all yellow. Oh yeah, your skin and bones turn to something beautiful. And you know I love you so. You know I love you so.